Welcome to another Victoria Rumble Room, a little show that packs, well, it can pack a big punch, but never with a lot of meanness. We try to do this with humor and, well, some insight. I'm Robin Adair, and across town in his Saanich lair is my partner in crime, the Croatian sensation himself, Jolton John Jurisic. How you doing, John?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we try to be humorous. I laugh. I don't know if anyone else laughs.
Well, who wouldn't be laughing about the pipelines and the fact there's been gas lineups and people hoarding in grocery stores? There's so many things to have a yuck about, John.
Oh, man. Just kind of, in business, you and I have been in business for a long time, and so much of what is being proposed as change or things to make whatever you're dealing with better is around people's capacity to change and adapt.
Yes.
And I think we've all reached a bit of a line where don't want any more. I don't want any more change. I don't want any more lives. I don't want any more. You can sense that out there. So the fact that things are normalizing a bit, okay, I'll take that.
People are hearing about this Omicron virus, the new virus that's rearing its head in the pandemic. And people have already got it in their heads. Okay, it's time to go to Hawaii. It's time to go to Vegas. It's time to go to Phoenix. I mean, they're on their way. And all the things that were holding them back over the last year and a half because of the pandemic, well, the heck with it. It's time to move.
Right.
It's time to move.
It's like, let's just put the last 2 years into the closet and pretend it never happened. No, society, people, organizations, business, we're all going to have to change and adapt. And within the spirit of that, I think we have been, and things look a tiny bit brighter for Christmas.
I think they do, and in a lot of different ways, John. And we're going to start off with something that I think is kind of out of the box a little bit. It's not our usual thing to talk about sports, but it's really great news. We had a championship performance in soccer. Yes. And isn't that great? We had a team, the Pacific FC, that goes to Hamilton, of all places, to play the Forge, and they beat them 1-0, and they win the Canadian Premier Championship. And who would have thunk it? It's just fantastic. A lot of people have been heavily supporting this franchise out in Langford, and they've been getting behind this team. A lot of young, talented people are getting their chance to show their wares. It's helping advance the sport, but it makes us feel great to have somebody to cheer for. And let's face it, if you're a hockey fan and you like the Canucks, at least we have soccer.
Who would have thunk it is the fact that you come from a background of sports reporting. That's when I first recall and remember you. And then you sort of, evolved into the premier news reporter in town. That's what I like to think, yeah. And so I'm a huge sports fan. I love our local teams. The Canucks have been sucking for about 7 years, I think. And certainly this year, I don't even watch any hockey. Seahawks, another major, fun for me and many, many people. They've been hurting this year as well. So it was good to see, after dumping the management and the coach and all kinds of top management personnel last week, the Canucks go and win last night, and the Seahawks won over the weekend. Yahoo!
Yeah, I'm not ready to hold a parade on that yet, John, but it is nice to see. It is nice to see some things to be happy about as we move towards the Christmas season. And let's get back to some of this bright lights we were talking about. Let's talk about Christmas lights. People have been hanging their Christmas lights early this year. People had their lights up by mid-November on their homes. People have had their trees up for weeks. People are so excited about Christmas, a chance to celebrate. And we've gotten huge crowds out for these parades. We had a parade where it poured rain downtown. Didn't matter. People came out. The giant trucks were driving through the city. People came out in droves to cheer them. And in Esquimalt, they had their big parade, the Parade of Lights. Santa was there, and we had a camera there. fantastic to see people out supporting these floats across the city. It was great to be in Esquimalt. It was a perfect night, really. It was a little cool, but no wind, and it wasn't that cold. And there were so many people, so many children, everyone so happy to be out and celebrating Christmas, celebrating life. It was, well, and Santa. Santa was there. And of course, celebrating along with everyone else at the parade I just mentioned was Esquimalt Mayor Barb Desjardins. And she is also wearing a hat with the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority. She's been cheering that on as well. We've had great news that the cruise ships are coming back starting in April, albeit they will be only half full for this first season because of COVID regulations. So is she surprised? Is she disappointed? And now joining us in the Victoria Rumble Room is the esteemed Mayor of Esquimalt, Barb Desjardins. Great to have you back on the show, Barb.
Oh, thanks so much. I always enjoy chatting with you both.
And Barb, you're here in a capacity as a member of the board of the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority. And boy, that's a big piece of news this week that the cruise ships are coming back, and it starts on the 6th of April. I guess the caveat to it is that the cruise ships are coming back, but they are not going to be full of passengers, about half capacity. Is this a surprise? Is this a disappointment?
No, I think it's a good business move on the cruise ships part, but I also think it's something that's been in the works with all of the discussions with governments. When you haven't had cruise ships in 2 years, the way that COVID evolved and how the cruise industry literally got crushed through that process.
Yeah.
There has to be absolute stringent protocols, and they have to be really understanding of the sensitivities of the ports as they come in. And of course, COVID hasn't gone away, so it's better to be overly cautious than not. And so I would say kudos to the cruise industry for recognizing that they have to build a reputation back for ports.
And all these Americans are double vaccinated?
They're going to have to be vaccinated, absolutely, to go on the ship. And of course, the government of Canada is working on the protocols here for getting off and getting back on and those sorts of things. So this is now at a government level where we can be quite confident that it's like coming in through an airport and transiting from various country to various country. There will be stringent rules in place.
Wow, now we move on to another municipal regional topic that's big news around the cooler these days. The weather, the washouts, you name it. How did we all do collectively when the gas was limited? Well, I know I kind of panicked, and gas shortages, and got to get all my toilet paper, go get 300 rolls for God. Well, we had huge lineups. I was in one. There's a lot of tension, like people were, and of course hoarding groceries. I'd go in and no bread, no eggs. What does the chair of a capital regional district think? He is our great leader.
Let's zoom him in.
Right on.
And as you can see, I've got my monitor, my media monitor is joining me right now. Totally. So he'll keep a close eye on this interview and make sure we stay on the straight and narrow. Exactly. So, Colin, what I'd like to do is ask you right off the top for some perspective on the CRD's role in emergencies. We've just had these floods. We've had the Malahat close. We had gas lineups. We had people actually hoarding groceries, which we haven't seen since the pandemic first sort of really becoming a problem. But last summer, we also had an unprecedented heat wave and a dome. Now, what I keep hearing about is that we're not somehow prepared or ready, or that people keep hearing that they should be ready, but they're not necessarily. And who do we rely on when these things happen? Is the CRD really the place where all of this has to happen? Are you the one responsible for really making sure that we are ready when the emergency comes?
I feel that the CRD in this last situation was ready if there was going to be a need to go to an emergency declaration, but we didn't go there. We did, knocking on wood, seem to escape the worst of it. And so it was something, though, that we were ready for. And the REMP, this emergency management program, is something that the province is working with the CRD to see that we are potentially going to be able to be an exemplar for the rest of the province of how to work regionally. So I feel that if something like this did happen, we would be ready, but the delivery of the services would still happen from each municipality. And there's a responsibility for each municipality to also be ready. So we would be the coordinator, as we are in many things within the capital region.
Right. Colin, great to see you again. I mean, you and I did a podcast before,
7 years ago.
Before your first election, right? Remember that?
I do. I very much remember it.
And as a Saanich resident, I'm clearly aware of your work with as a counselor and at the CRD. I think you're doing an amazing job. You're clearly a busy person. You're also a teacher at Claremont. But my question to you, to make things even busier, maybe less, I doubt we'll ever see amalgamation in this area, at least in our lifetime. Therefore, CRD becomes the next best option. And in your opinion, should the CRD be playing, therefore, a bigger role in regional issues like homelessness, economic development, likely, and maybe most importantly, transportation?
Absolutely. I think there's a role for the CRD to play. Our motto is making a difference together. And let's look at some of those issues that you just mentioned. Housing, because we have the Capital Regional Housing Corporation, which is a unique entity that not many other regional districts or cities have, where they actually have a housing entity. We have over 2,000 units that are in the works to be built on top of the 1,600 units that we already have. So the CRD is a housing provider, and that happens through all of the municipalities working together. The CRD owns that corporation. And so that is a body where there is housing work being done. We also did something called the Regional Housing First program. We're working with the federal and provincial governments. We are equal partners, contributing $50 million each towards developing and building and buying affordable housing. And so that $150 million is being used as seed money or mortgage money. We're not going out and buying $150 million worth of housing. We're actually using that and getting $750 million of housing. When it comes to the transportation system, clearly there is work to be done in our region. This fractured state we have, where each municipality is responsible for their own roads and has a complicated relationship with the province because of the highways that run through some of their municipalities, hasn't resulted in a flowing, easy, green system. And so the CRD has made transportation a priority, and we have a transportation committee. And we actually are very proud that just recently we've established an intermunicipal committee of all of the region's traffic engineers from each municipality to work together to identify opportunities and priorities for us to work together. And that work, even though you'd think, well, shouldn't that be happening already? They were meeting annually to have discussions, but they weren't doing this kind of focusing of priorities and seeing how we could coordinate more. It was more just a working group to discuss what they were each up to.
Colin, I get that you need to leave us soon. You actually need to teach a class in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So my final question will be in the spirit of what you have to do. So an arising issue coming out of these COVID times for business has been a dramatic lack of employees, dramatic lack of people. There just aren't enough staff. You are in the process of training future staff, future people. And therefore, does the CRD have a role in educating an industry-based training for what is now an emergent workforce that doesn't seem to match the need?
Yeah, you bring back the topic of economic development, which I didn't answer a few minutes ago when you referenced the three topics of housing, economic development, and transportation. So back to the economic development / housing component. I actually was an advocate at the CRD board table for the CRD to take on a greater role within economic development, but the majority of the board didn't want to do that. They actually wanted to maintain the relationship that they actually had already with their chambers of commerce and specifically with the South Island Prosperity Project, SIP. And so the CRD, I wanted the CRD to become somewhat the body through which the municipalities would potentially operate, but there just wasn't that interest. And so you have to respect the outcome of the board direction, which is that the municipalities would rather see their direct relationship with the organization rather than going through the CRD. But I think your comment about economic development, it's clearly going to be something that the CRD has to wrestle with because it is a regional issue. It's not a City of Victoria issue. It's not a Highlands issue. Yeah. Everybody in this region has an interest in the economic development that's going on here because our jobs don't know municipal boundaries. And so where you live, it doesn't really mean necessarily where you're going to work. So I think we'll see how SIP goes once we find ourselves perhaps in a post-COVID world where we would revisit this topic. But currently the directors are looking at municipal control of their citizens' interest in SIP as opposed to handing that off to the CRD and then having a board of directors of 24. And I can appreciate that. They don't necessarily want to see their municipality lose their direct connection to SIP and to the chambers. So I think there's a role, but it's not one that we're advancing at this time.
Well, we certainly enjoyed chatting with Colin Plant. We're going to be hearing more from him. Actually, in a few weeks, we're going to be talking to folks from the ENN Railway. And Colin Plant had some comments about that rail service. So we'll be able to fit him in again with a comment there. And we're looking forward to, of course, chatting with him about other issues as we move rapidly into the new year. And even more rapidly, next week, we have another high-profile municipal politician, the mayor of Saanich, Fred Haynes, will be here. A couple of important announcements, Johnny, and always a very topical guy. Looking forward to talking to Fred.
Fred was one of our initial interviews with the Rumble Room, and that was so fun. And he was very mobile. It was very liquid. He would walk out. He had to get his dog. It was a lot of fun, and so I think it'll continue to be entertaining. And talking about entertaining, we must be hitting some kind of nerve here in the community. Our viewership has sort of gone through the roof.
Tell me, John. Tell me.
That's a nice setup. Thank you. we're over 200,000 cumulative views since April. Which means somebody's listening, somebody's watching, and for sure they're going to jump on board when we get Fred next week. And of course, as always,
how do people get on with this, John? Before we wrap this thing further, could you explain to people how they can sort of tune in on the show and how they can like us and follow us and be part of the Rumble Room family?
Well, they can just pick up their can, which is connected by rope to another can. And say, I love the Victoria Rumble Room. If you don't have that kind of
that's the heuristic method.
Right, that's the old technology. But if you want to be part of the new technology, join us on Facebook, and of course Twitter, which is getting increasingly active. Sometimes I'm a little bit scared to go onto Twitter and read those comments. Inventory of all of the interviews and all of the clips that we do are on YouTube and our website. And of course, we are also on Instagram and the craziest platform of them all, TikTok. Yes, sir. And so we'd love you to be a friend. We'd love you to follow us. We'd love you to join with our fun. Man, do we have fun. One of these days, Robin, we're going to, maybe not. Maybe we won't post what we talk about when we're not recording. Let's make a vow never to do that.
No, I think not, Johnny. We'll take that to the grave.
Right, we certainly will. Anyway, my name, as always, grace and sensation from Upper Tulip Avenue, Johnny Jurisic.
And I am Robin Adair, and rumble on.